Welcome to another episode of Stockport Grammar School Talks Sport. Today's guest is Stockport born and bred. He works in the world of professional sport as a professional sports photographer. Most notably, he works in the NBA. But more recently, he's been selected to be an official photographer at the Olympic Games in Tokyo. So welcome aboard, Stephen Gosling. How are you doing?
Very well. Good morning.
Good stuff. You were trying to keep that last one a secret from me because you didn't mention that, so I have to mention.
I heard about it on Wednesday.
Yeah, amazing. Congratulations.
So yeah, fingers crossed it doesn't get postponed again and everything goes ahead. But yeah, no, that was a big shock.
No, congratulations. Well done. All right, we'll get cracking then. So first of all, do you just want to give a little bit of a brief introduction about your journey and where you've come from Stockport to where you are today in Washington?
Sure. So I'm born and bred in Stockport. I was born in Stappen Hill Hospital. I grew up on Lowndes Lane, which is just off Mile End Lane. I went to Stockport School, so Mile End. I went across the street.
Yeah.
I sort of discovered photography when I was 15. I did Duke of Edinburgh's award.
Yeah.
And we did our expedition, to get the final Duke of Edinburgh award thing. You have to do a trip somewhere, and so our group went to Spain. We went to Mallorca to climb some mountains, and I'd always been interested in photography, and I used it as an excuse to buy a camera and take it with me to take photographs. And I basically knew then that was what I wanted to do. So then I got an A-level in photography. I did my A-levels at Aquinas College. And then I went to Stockport College to get a BTEC art diploma, which you have to get to do an art degree. And then so I have a documentary and fine art photography degree from the University of Liverpool.
Yeah.
But I only went to the University of Liverpool for one day. My degree was all done at Stockport College, and I went to the University of Liverpool for graduation. So that was it. And then I emigrated to the States right after graduation. So I was 22, lived in New York for a little bit, and then moved down here to DC. And I was very lucky. It was like a right time, right place sort of moment that one of the first gigs that I booked was assisting at the WNBA All-Star Game, so the Women's National Basketball Association. So the All-Star Game that year was here in DC, and I got hired by a photographer just to assist her for 4 days as she was doing portraits of players that were at the All-Star Game. And then the Washington Wizards replaced their team photographer with a guy that I had met during All-Star. And he remembered me and he brought me along to work with him. And now we're 14 seasons later.
Wow.
So it was just right place, right time.
Yeah, what a journey so far. Let's touch on a little bit about, obviously, 22-year-old moving across the world. How did that come about?
So I met a girl. So I did Camp America when I was 19. So I was a camp counselor at a summer camp in Oxford, Pennsylvania. And the camp that I was at also recruited from a college in Ohio. And I met my wife there. And we sort of knew right away that we were going to be together. So 2 years of long distance whilst I finished university, because I was only halfway through. So went through the process of getting a fiance visa, multiple trips back and forth over 2 years. We got married a month after I graduated. So we got married on my birthday in August of 2006. And then here we are, 14 and a half years later, still married, so it worked out. But it was never a plan to move to America. But then, Camp America happened and I met my wife and we just knew we were going to be together. And then so I moved over here, and here I am.
Oh, cool. And a lot of things actually on this series we've been talking to, a lot of the people, they've experienced different cultures and been to different countries. How do you think that's benefited you in your field, in your journey?
I feel like it certainly made me slightly more memorable. If someone's worked with, a number of photographers or just a number of people, they might remember, the English photographer a little bit more. So like I definitely feel like I've booked work maybe because I was slightly more memorable just because I was different.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not. But I feel like maybe it has.
Yeah. We're talking a lot about on this series about high performance mindset, and again, we're big believers here at Stockport that you don't need elite talent to have an elite mindset, and if you have that mindset, you're going to do great things if you do the simple things right. So, what makes high performance to Stephen Gosling?
Preparation, which is interesting for me to talk about because I can be very lazy. But if it's important, then I definitely try not to be. But yeah, it's a lot about preparation, specifically with photography. Researching your subject. So not necessarily like the action sports side, but so I have to then do a lot of portrait work with athletes, and just because I'm in Washington D.C., I tend to work a lot with politicians and corporate CEOs. But so they usually can't give you a lot of time. So if I'm doing, a portrait shoot with an athlete, they can maybe give me 2-3 minutes.
Yeah.
So everything has to be perfect when they arrive. Like I can't have them arrive and then be, fiddling with the lights and fiddling with my camera settings because I might be eating up 2/3 of the time I have with them. And so then I'm creating less because I'm still preparing whilst they're there. So it's like preparation, just getting your gear in the right place, everything being charged, memory cards in the camera being, fully erased and ready to go, all your camera settings perfectly set and ready to go. But then also having something to talk about with them. So I'll usually do a little bit of research about each subject just so I can talk to them. So the way that I shoot portraits is I chat. And then because if I just say, okay, smile, not everyone's going to do it. Not everyone's that comfortable in front of the camera right away. So I usually just, I'll try and find out something about, them, their family, hobbies that they might have, just so I can make them comfortable and get them chatting.
Yeah.
So it's, preparation in terms of equipment and then also the person. So that's what I would say is high performance is being ready, basically.
No, I think that's a really important message across anything you do, isn't it? Be prepared for what you're going to do and do your homework, and that's really useful. And in terms, obviously, you've come across top level athletes and top level politicians and CEOs. Is anybody in particular, you don't have to mention any names, you've come away thinking, I've learnt that today? Is there anything that's come out from that?
So I do some work for a nonprofit, a climbing, or it's an outdoor nonprofit, we'll say. It's called the Access Fund. And so part of what they do is they secure access to public land for climbers.
Yeah.
And so I've met Alex Honnold a couple of times and photographed him, and people might know him from the documentary that came out a couple of years ago called Free Solo, where he climbed the side of El Cap in Yosemite without a rope. So if he falls off, he dies. He is the most single-minded person I've ever met. He just lives and breathes climbing. So like I followed him around so they were going to Capitol Hill and they were lobbying politicians, trying to get what they want. So there's access to public land. And then so I'm following him around, and in waiting rooms before we go in, he's just there chatting with other climbers and, the staffers in the office, and just like people will be asking him about, oh, like what are you climbing next? And he's literally describing each hold on a climb. And he's like, okay, so this one is here, and then you're going to move to this dyno, and then this, and he just could memorize 3,000 feet of climbing,
Cool.
which is hundreds of moves, and he knows them all because
Yeah.
he's done them so much and he's so dedicated to it.
Yeah.
So his single-mindedness really affected me. Like that's dedication, and so
Yeah.
that was very interesting to me.
No, awesome. That's really good. And then linking on a little bit, talking about people who've influenced you in your journey. Have you got anyone that stands out and why?
So it's I'm sure everyone credits their parents, and it's kind of sappy. But so I'm going to credit my parents in a low key way because they never pushed me in any direction.
Yeah.
There was never, you have to go to university, you have to do this, you have to do that. They just left me alone to figure out what I wanted to do. And then when I, came back and was like, I want to do this, they're just like, okay, let's, figure out a way to do it and get it done. Because I was, when I was in high school, I was good at maths. And so I think we thought I was maybe going to be an accountant or something. And then I got bad at maths, or I did my maths GCSE a year early, and then I didn't do maths for a year.
Yeah.
And then when I tried to then pick it back up at A level, I'd literally forgotten everything. So that went out the window, which is all good. But then someone was like, I want to go to art school and I want to do this and I want to do that. It was just like, okay, like figure out where you're going to go and, make sure, you have a part-time job so you can afford to buy the things you need to buy. So I'll credit my parents for that. And then just other photographers. So it's like not necessarily ones that I've met, but just other photographers who I've studied along the way. There is one photographer who was a few years ahead of me at Stockport College called Lloyd Bishop, who was a wonderful portrait photographer. And he is the chief photographer for the Seth Meyers Show, which is a TV show here in the States in New York. And he does a lot of great behind the scenes documentary work. And so like we've had a good number of conversations over the years and we keep in touch. So he's affected my work just because I think, so the photographers that affect me are better than me. So he's a much better photographer than I am. And so like I like to look at his work often for it to sort of hopefully influence and progress mine. But then the other NBA photographer that I work with in DC has basically taught me everything I know about shooting basketball.
Yeah.
He's a photographer called Ned Dishman. He's from New York. And then just the other NBA photographers that I'm aware of and I'm around. So, Andy Bernstein from LA and Nat Butler in New York.
Yeah, that's good. And you, obviously, what comes across there is you're picking the best of different people. You're not trying to copy anybody, but you're trying to be the best version of you, and you just steal different.
Cherry pick.
Yeah,
cherry pick like their skills and see how it can help progress mine.
Yeah, no, I think that's really, really important. That's good. No, good stuff. And then we'll talk about obviously ups and downs and on people's careers. Have you had any setbacks that have hit you, and if you had them setbacks, what did you do to overcome them?
That's an interesting one. So setbacks. So potentially two avenues. So number one, my body hates me. So currently I'm in this arm brace because I tore a tendon in my elbow, and kind of like weirdly because of the way that we have to shoot now because of COVID. Yeah. I'm in a different position than I would normally be, and so right now I'm actually able to use a tripod, so I can still shoot because I'm not having to hold any of the weight. But also, like 4 years ago, I had back surgery. I have a spinal fusion in my lower back just because, like, randomly one of my vertebrates was growing a bone spur. It was no accident. I wasn't in a car crash or anything. I was just experiencing back pain. But so the setback there being, like, number one, like it hurt like hell. But number two, I had to take 10 weeks off from shooting.
Yeah.
And so, I'm fully self-employed. I am my own business, so I had to not work for 10 weeks, and so my income dipped that year. As well as then I have to pay for the surgery because healthcare isn't free in this country. But that's a separate conversation. And then but then career-wise, I've had corporate clients that I've lost. Usually, I sort of maintain relationships with like a creative director or a marketing director or something like that. And then if they move jobs, a new person comes and works for that company, and they might have a prior relationship with a different photographer that they've worked with previously. And so I've gained clients that way when when they've moved jobs, they've brought me along. And then I've lost, good clients the same way. So that's always a setback. And, I'm by no means perfect. I've had people, not like photographs that I've taken, or not liked, the imagery that I've produced. And so then it's about, just being able to swallow your pride and, ask for feedback, like, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? What could I have done better? And then to fix it for the future.
Yeah. And that can happen in anything, doesn't it? Like, it can be just people's opinions, and with some of our students, they may do something and they think they've done the best possible, but actually somebody doesn't like it. And yeah, what advice would you give to those people there?
So it's, I guess, swallowing your pride. It's hurtful. I've had it happen to me, and it's where I felt like I did a good job, and so I didn't understand. But so it's to move past the, I did a good job, it's fine. It's they didn't enjoy it, didn't appreciate the product you were giving them for whatever reason, and to just try and see it from their point of view, and then to, augment that for the future. So then, you might lose that client, they might give you a second chance, and then to try and change what you did, in the future. And it might not even be from my point of view, it might not be like the images, it might be the way they were delivered, the timing, and it might even just be a personality thing. Maybe I was too friendly or not friendly enough. But I think it's important to ask for feedback so that you can sort of understand how they're interpreting what you're giving them.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's also trying to turn that setback into a positive, isn't it? And that's where you see that feedback. How can I get better? I might have, in their eyes, failed, but actually, it's just a stepping stone of learning in a different way.
Yeah. And alternatively, there have been clients where I feel like I've not done a good job, or I felt like I could have given them a better image, and they've done nothing but praise what I've given them. And so I'm not going to be like, no, I could have done that better. I'm just going to make that note to myself about what I feel like I didn't do best, because I wasn't pleased, and I want to make sure that I'm pleased with what I'm giving them.
On the flip side, Stephen, you've had many accomplishments so far. What are you most proud of to date, and why?
So, accomplishments are a hard thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Because I don't like to try and toot my own horn too much, as it were. But the Olympics thing was very cool. That was a really big. I feel like that. I feel like that's an accomplishment. So I really am hoping they're going ahead. So just to be selected, so the NBA has this agreement with USA Basketball where they provide the photographers. So I'll be going to, hopefully, to the Olympics with USA Basketball and shooting the men's and women's teams, as well as some select other teams that just have high-level NBA talent. So obviously Luka Doncic, who I think is Slovenian. I hope I'm not getting that wrong. And Rui Hachimura, who's a wizard, will be playing for Japan. So that would be a big one to shoot as well. So I that's a big accomplishment to be selected for that. But then also this past summer, the NBA season and the WNBA season had to be finished and played in bubbles. So I was one of two photographers that was selected to shoot the entire WNBA season, which was shot in Florida. So I, lived in a hotel for 3 months and photographed 2 to 3 basketball games a day, every day for 6 days a week. And so just being selected for the league to consider me good enough to go and do that, and for them to trust me, I feel like is a big accomplishment. But then also just, excuse me, moving to this country and not knowing anyone other than my wife, and moving to DC, and which my wife is not from DC. Like, we didn't know anyone here. My wife had a cousin who lived here, but that was it. Just, starting my business and, increasing profits year on year, is a boring accomplishment, but I feel like an important one.
Yeah.
And like sort of as like with current things as they are with COVID, a lot of photographers are struggling. Like event photographers, wedding photographers obviously can't shoot. Portrait photographers have to augment how they shoot, and they can no longer get close to their subjects, or they shouldn't be. And if they are, it's with masks and social distancing and whatever else they can do. But I've been lucky that my business has not really suffered. So I feel like that's slightly an accomplishment, but that's more so just because the NBA continued, which was good.
And then this is going off piece a little bit. Have you got one image that is your favorite image you've shot?
Oh, no.
Only choose one.
No, I don't have. So I have images I'm proud of.
Yeah.
Or like images I remember, and it's like this. So there's one Wizards photo from a few years ago. So it was and it wasn't even like an action shot. It was a celebration shot, and so I was just lucky that the player turned towards me to celebrate, and he just literally like screams. And so that was the first photo of mine that was ever used on a billboard.
Wow.
So that was on a billboard outside the arena, however many dozens of feet wide and tall. So that's the biggest, printing one of my images has ever been printed. So like that's one that just sticks out in my mind. But
how did that make you feel, Stephen? Sorry, how did that make you feel when you walked to the stadium and you saw that image? You took that photo. What was going through your head then?
It was like it's like I can feel my cheeks raising. It just made me smile. It was sort of a just like a little bit of recognition, like, oh, I'm doing a good job.
Yeah.
These images it's always just very gratifying to see your images being used. Even like from a small client to a big client, like I'll be scrolling Instagram and I'll see like, oh, they used my photo from this game. That I photographed, or this client really likes this portrait and they're using that image a lot. And so it's just always gratifying just to see your images being used. It's like I've taken photographs of like 2 presidents, multiple congressmen and senators. So there would be like MPs, members of parliament. And it's more so I remember shooting it, and like the feeling I got shooting something that because that they're a public figure or an important person, like knowing that image is also like a historical record. So it's very gratifying to know that like my images could be used for a long time.
No, that's really, really good. And then we've touched upon this next question before, when you talked about the free solo climb. Have you got any specific examples of sporting stars that have had a long-lasting impact on you? So once you've taken a photo of them, that you walked away thinking, yeah, I learned that today, or that impression?
So it's not necessarily that, like, because I took the photo of them, but so like the WNBA. So particularly being around all of the WNBA players a lot this summer, you sort of learn how like underappreciated they are, which is very, very sad. I think that's true for a lot of women's sports in general. If you look at, women's soccer, uh, you know, women's basketball, um, it's they're often put at a lower level than, men's teams or men's athletes.
Mhm.
And so watching them, up close this summer, just not only play the sport at such a high level, but also just with, how much grace and professionalism they approach their job,
Mhm.
was very inspiring. Um, so and it was also just very interesting because like we lived in the same hotel with these 144 professional athletes, and so we got to know them much more than we would normally have, and so then just being that much closer to them, I think really had, like, that's going to be an experience I remember, for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But then also, like the Wizards players that I interact with, like you sort of just realize that they're normal people. Like, yes, they can be multimillionaires because they're at the top of their game and the top of the league, in terms of, skill. But like Bradley Beal, who is uh, one of the more high profile Washington Wizards players, he just got voted onto the All-Star team this week as an All-Star starter. Like I was talking to him on Media Day this year. So Media Day is when we do portraits of all the players. And I was just asking him about his kids, and because he's got two young boys, and like he was telling me about like what they like to do
Mhm.
and how big his smile got because of it.
Yeah.
And I was telling him, I was like, like we've been talking for like 10 minutes and I asked you about your kids and you just smiled really big. And it's like they're just like, so it's nothing to do with the fact that I took his photo. It's just that they treat you as an equal
Yeah.
because you are. It's like, yes, they're famous, or yes, they're very wealthy because of what they do and how good they are at doing it, but they're just people, and as long as you show respect to them and don't treat them in a certain way, so it's like I don't ask players for anything. I don't ask them for favors. I don't ask them for autographs. That would be inappropriate.
Yeah.
And that's me trying to get something from them. So I just, treat them as a friend.
Yeah.
And I hope that then, they would then treat me the same. And, 99% of them do. And then that stays with you because then you've got this relationship with them.
Yeah. No, no, definitely. I think that's really, really important. Like you said, they're just normal people, aren't they? They're people who have got a talent, but also when we're talking about this mindset, they've got that elite mindset as well. So that's the only difference, really.
Yeah.
Which is good. No, awesome. And then we're asking everybody these last two questions. So this next question is, what are your three non-negotiable behaviours you'd expect from yourself or anybody you'd come into contact with?
So professionalism.
Yeah.
And just, when you're dealing with a subject, just like being open and clear about what you're asking them, what you want them to do to then, if it's a portrait, to get the best result. But again, like, don't be asking for favors, don't be asking for things. Timing, which sort of goes along with professionalism. And sort of what I was like, if it's a really important person, they might only be able to give you, 1 minute. And so you have to be ready to go. So like I'm always early. Like you might have a call time, it's like, maybe you've been told, okay, the subject will be with you at 10 o'clock, but maybe something happens and they have to go somewhere else at 10 o'clock. So they arrive at 9:30, so being early and being able to adapt, and sort of roll with the punches, especially with, high level people, is a good skill to have. And then just like for me, it's knowing my equipment and having backups. So, if I do have to change something, because, either it's not right or it breaks, being able to do it quickly so that you, again, just rolling with the punches. So I spend a lot of time, especially when it's a new piece of equipment that I buy or that I use. Just sort of like learning it in and out, reading the manual, pressing every button, and just knowing what it does and how it does it so that I can use it to the best of its ability.
Yeah, no, good. And those three, you've said there, don't just relate to your role, it relates to a lot of things in life, doesn't it?
Yeah, I hate being late for appointments. It gives me anxiety. I'm always the person that's like 20 to 30 minutes early for the dentist. I'm happy just sitting in the waiting room. I will read a magazine. But if I was 1 minute late, I would hate it.
And then last one from me then. So if you could go back to being a 12-year-old boy, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give yourself?
Oh, invest in Google. Well, that would be step one. I don't know. Like at 12, like I didn't know what I wanted to do at 12.
Yeah.
So like at 12, like being that young, or not even necessarily at 12, but just being open to like lots of different things, and don't try and pigeonhole yourself quite so young. Try lots of different things, learn as much about them as you can, and then find what it is you like to do. What you're good at and what will help you, contribute something. So whether it be, I know we're talking about sport specific things, but so whether it's you know you know photography, so just thinking about like with the Wizards, they have a social media team, and their social media team also works with graphic designers and the marketing team. So you don't have to specifically be an athlete or an athlete agent or a trainer, a coach, but so just in terms of like the imagery or the art side, there's photography, graphics, website design, the social media team. There's just lots of different things you can do within a sports world. So try lots of different things and sort of see what you're good at, see what you like to do.
No, that's great advice, and that's something I always stress to the students, that in sport, there's every industry in sport. I can't think of any industry where there isn't something you can go into. So that's it, definitely.